calm has returned to Westbury and Coronationville in Johannesburg following 2 days of violent protests over prolonged water supply interruptions. The Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero visited the area on Thursday and promised residents that water will be restored within 7 days. However, that would mean diverting water from other areas. Johannesburg Water, the entity that supplies water in the city, says it has a problem with aging infrastructure and it has allocated close to R1 billion, around 800 million rand to be specific, to deal with the problem. Let's get an update from Lopang Alamu, who joins us now to give us an update on that story. Lopang, so it's a situation that was quite tense, violent clashes between protesters and the police over the 2 days of protests, followed by meetings with the city's leadership. How is it looking this Saturday afternoon?
It's really calm at the moment. However, you can still sense the frustration amongst the residents. Now, this because water hasn't been fully restored yet, so they still need to make long trips to go to the borehole that we saw them go to, or the primary school, which had a tap that could supply water to them. Now, you'd see them carrying buckets as well as bottles and your 20 liters to basically just get water to sustain them for a couple of hours. They then have to make a trip back to those points to get more water. So it's quite unsustainable, and we can actually sense the frustration. We also did speak to them yesterday. Now, this is the day we were meant to see water tanks being delivered to these areas, 15 of those, to just calm the situation down and have residents get more water until those 7 days. We get to see that the water has been fully restored. But at this point, there's still not water, and it is quite a situation that's frustrating for a number of reasons. You have your primary schools and high schools that cannot function without water. You have households that cannot function with water. Now, that frustration is just really a build up, and we really hope that within these 7 days, the water is fully restored, because what might happen thereafter, as we've heard from the residents, that they will not be as easy, as they call it, on the police as well as the leaders from Johannesburg the next time they take to the streets with this same problem.
And Lopang, the meeting between city leaders and communities, perhaps an outlet for communities to voice out their frustrations that had been building up for quite some time. What's our sense of whether or not the promise and undertaking of restoring water within seven days is widely believed in the community, but also the sense to which this community believes that that may be the beginnings of a permanent fix to the problem?
So you speak of a permanent solution, and that's exactly what they're saying. Also, with regards to the first part of your question, the community have absolutely no trust in city leaders. We actually spoke to them after that particular meeting, and none of the residents we had spoken to felt that the city was doing enough. They said they've heard this many times before. In fact, the water problem, from what we understand, has been an ongoing issue since 2022. Now, it's 3 years later, and with all the promises being made by city leaders, they have seen nothing, no change. In fact, it's gotten worse. And this according to the residents. So it's a situation of them saying that only when they protest and it makes the news do then city officials really get up on their feet and engage them. We also do know that they have a problem with getting to communicate with city leaders directly. Now, they say that they've been using multiple channels to get through to the mayor, for example, and only when they started taking to the streets were they paid attention to. And I think quite interesting was the number of kids that we actually saw during those protests. Now, that also takes us back to the fact that the areas, now you have your Westbury, Coronationville, Newlands as well, it's quite a big area. And you'd notice that kids were just roaming the streets on that day. They also actually saw them throw rocks at police. And that's really not the kind of situation you would want to see, particularly for children and the youth. they should be in school, but they cannot go to school because there's no water at home, there's no water in school.
All right. Lopang, let's leave it there for this afternoon. Lopang Alamu, SABC News reporter, giving us an update there on the situation in Westbury and Coronationville.